Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at iteration, also known as repetition, inside of Archean with the Xenon code programming language. Now iteration is awesome. It gives you the ability to repeat things very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, all programmers have a simple philosophy called DRY, don't repeat yourself. That simply means if you want to do something a certain number of times, come up with a way to simplify it. And again, one of the things you're always looking to do with any of your program in existence is to try to make things simple so they're easy to edit. I can't say that enough. Design your code to make it easy to do edits, and your life will be good. So what we're going to do is show you the basic types of loops. And again, there's a few different types of loops that we have built into Archean here. And we're just going to kind of go through each one one at a time, again, to sort of show you what to use for them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a quick little init here. I'm going to go ahead and blank out my screen here. That way everything is nice and dark. So what we're going to do here is we're going to demonstrate the first kind of loop, which is going to be everybody's favorite, the repeat loop. So the repeat loop is kind of a fun little trick. It allows you to repeat things a certain number of times. So I'm going to type in the word repeat, type in how many times I want to repeat, and then in the parentheses here, I'm going to create a variable. And again, you want to be very careful here that you don't create a variable you've already used. So if I have something like this, that could give you some issues, so just be mindful of it. Now this loop is kind of a fun trick. What it will do is it'll repeat 10 times, starting at the number 0. For those of you who are quick and go, haha, you'll immediately recognize the fact that will start you at 0 and end you at 9. So I'm going to press enter, then I'm going to press tab. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to keep it nice and simple. I'm simply going to write on the screen. I'm going to do it on the left side of the screen. Watch the magic. Yes, you can take that value and now reference it. Now, the cool thing about repeats here is this value $I will start at 0, meaning whatever I do here will start at 0. Then when it repeats, it'll go up to 1, which means I can do fun things like it, like that. Hey. And of course, we need to put a color on this one. I'll do cyan because that seems to be the default color. Now, let's walk you through this. The first thing we're doing here is repeating 10 times, starting at the number 0. I'm now going to be writing on my screen starting at position 0. You're saying, what? 0 times 12 is 0, which means we'll start right here. Now, when this loops around once, that would now mean this equals 1, meaning I'm now going to be printing at position 12, because 1 times 12 is going to, of course, equal 12. Now, if I run this, achoo, you will notice the fact that the word hey, I think there's a Gershwin and Kingsley song called Hey Hey, if you want to have a good laugh later on. So the cool thing here is you'll see this repeated 10 times. And these repeat loops are fabulous for repeating something a specific number of times, just like you can see right there. So the repeat loop is very flexible. I use it all the time for drawing elements on the screen. I feel like this is the one I use not all the time, but quite often. So I'm going to go ahead and bang that out real quickly here. Save my code. Nice. The next kind of code we're going to take a look at is a for loop. A for loop is, for those of you familiar with other programming languages, the universal definite iteration. It allows you to start at a value and end at a value. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to start by typing 4. I'm going to write where I'd like to start. Let's start at 1. I'm going to now do comma and write where I want to end 5. Now, just like with our repeat loop here, I need to go ahead and define a variable. I'm going to use I because it seems to be the fancy choice for Archean here. Press enter, and I'm going to do the same darn thing I just did a second ago. 0, comma, %I, or $I. That's an old language. We're going to go ahead and say 12 again. We'll do green this time, and we'll go ahead and say, hey. All right. Now, before you press continue here, we're going to be starting at the number 1. Are we going to end at the number 5, or are we going to end at the number 4? So let's see what happens. As you can see here, we started not at the upper left corner this time. We started 12 down. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's correct. Unlike Python, if you're familiar with that, this 5 here is our ending point, meaning we started at 1, we ended at 5. Now, some of you immediately will go, is there some way you could flip this around and achieve the same thing you achieved over here? The answer is yes. We just have to be very cautious with that. Let me show you why. So let's say you wanted to do something like this. 0, comma, let's see here, 60, and we'll do %I. And your intention was to write the same thing I have here. So you'd come in here and you do $I, thinking, haha, I'm going to win the game here. You'd come in here and do a color. I will do blue this time, and of course, we'll do hey. Well, look what happens. The reason that happened, that's a technical term, by the way. The reason that happened, it looks like our text is bleeding, is because we asked it to do it 61 times. And now the reason it went through 61 times is for starting at 0 and ending at 60. So I went down, pixel drew, pixel drew, pixel drew, pixel drew, pixel drew, and chewed up that entire screen. You're sitting there going, oh, that's not fair. How would you fix that? What would you do? Well, we could do what we did before, where we did 0 to 5 times 12. That would be a simple way to do it. The other thing you could do is 0 to 12 times 5, but that's going to create a simple problem. Take a look. So we'll come in here and we'll say I times 5. And you can see here, just like you expected. Again, math works no matter how you use it. And that is one of the crazy things about math. If you look really carefully, by the way, do you notice each one of these is exactly 12 apart? So if I make it a little bit bigger, look at that. You can adjust how wide everything is. Isn't that so cool? And look at this little ladder I made here. I'm making like an old school roguelike or something like that. So as you can see, those for loops are very, very valuable for those particular purposes. I use them all the time to do things like draw circles and stuff like that. There's some really, really fun trigonometry you can play with repeating things. The next type of loop we're going to take a look at is a little bit more complicated, and that's going to be, unfortunately, what they call a for each loop. So the next type of loop we're going to take a look at is called a for each loop. Now, for each is a little advanced because it's dealing with an element that we haven't actually talked about yet, and that is arrays. But what I've basically done here is I've created an array. An array is just a list, if you want to think about it simply here. There are 10 elements in that list, and each one of those elements says the word hey. Now, what we want to do is we want to iterate through this list so that each element prints on the screen along with where it is in the array. So to do this, we're simply going to type in for each space. Now you're going to type in the name of the array. Now in our case, it's known as AR, which keeps it simple. Then in parentheses, you're now going to need two variables. One variable is going to represent the index. The second variable is going to represent the actual item in the array. So I'm going to do INX, again for the index, and then I'm going to do item to keep it nice and simple. Now, the cool thing here is when this loops around, it will go into the array and establish the values of these variables based on the thing in the array. So, for example, our first element in the array would be element 0. And of course, what we're going to do here is the first element in the array also is going to be hey. So the index would be 0, hey, 1, hey, 2, hey, so on and so forth. Now, we're going to print these on the screen, and this is going to get really, really messy. I really don't like having to write code like this, but again, that's going to be okay for us. So I'm going to do 0, INX times 12, comma. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and write two things on the screen. We're going to do this. Oh, this is going to be so messy. Oh, goodness. There we go. One of the things I forgot already was the color of the text. Ew, this is so ugly. There we go. So what we're saying here is go into this array, go to each item one at a time. We want you to go ahead and place it on the screen based on the index of it. Again, index 0 is going to be the first item. It's going to be up here. Return the color blue. And then what we want to do is we want to write each index plus each item. Now, when I save this, you'll observe the fact that my first item, item 0 in my array, is going to be 0. I put that colon there. You can see it right there. And it's going to say, hey. And again, I could change these values. I could have done AR.5 equals sup or something like that. And then if I run that, you'll notice the fact that item number 5 here is I'm now sup instead of hey because I've overwritten it inside this list. Now, these for eaches are really, really, really darn useful when you were doing certain things like doing keyboards, for example. I find it very useful. If you're doing like radar elements and each element in the radar has like a double value, like an XY coordinate, those are absolutely fabulous for that. But again, you have to be mindful of your memory limitations when you start fiddling around with lists. So let's go ahead and clean that all up real fast here. Again, we'll clean up our screen. Now, the last type of loop, that could be fun. Last type of loop we're going to take a look at today is called a while loop. The whiles are awesome. Hypothetically, in the universe, you only need whiles for anything you could possibly ever want to do. Good news about whiles. As long as the while is true, it's going to keep iterating. This also means that you could crash Archean if you create an infinite loop. Warning, 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 warning. I'm going to try really hard not to crash Archean because it's very, very simple to do. All right. So to do this, we need to create a situation. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable. I'm going to call it we can call it number. And we'll set it equal to 64. And we're going to say while the number is less than 128. So what we're saying here is as long as the value of my number variable is less than 128, keep repeating. Now we have to be so careful with this. I can't say that enough. So what I'm going to do is very, 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 very carefully, I'm going to write 0, comma, number. Like I said, keep it very careful. We're going to do a period this time. Don't forget some color, cyan kind of period. Right. And I'm going to increment the number. The reason I'm incrementing this number is I intentionally want to make it so that as we go down the screen, there's no chance I could create an infinite loop here. So I'm going to say number plus equals 1. This simply now says start the number at 64, keep going, keep looping until that number hits 128, and then bail. Meanwhile, we're going to be writing a period on the screen as we go. Now, the fun thing is if we want to have a little bit of fun with this, we could do this, which would mean we get a little one of those down the screen. Run, and you can see here that number is not recognized on line 4. The reason we didn't is because I forgot to put the word var. Voila! You can see here that I have now driven a line. Now you can imagine this right here is 64, 64. This point here is going to be 128, 128. Isn't that darn cool? And again, this only ran 64 times. If I did something stupid and forgot to increment that value or created an infinite loop, your Archean will crash because it cannot escape from that. Theoretically, this should have a soft lockup if you do that, but sometimes it doesn't work. So you want to be really careful, especially on multiplayer servers. Now, one of the cool things here, if I come in here and do equal to, you'll notice I get exactly 1 longer. Now, the neat thing is if I wanted to start my number at 0, woo, now you can see I've got a line going all the way down there like that. That's kind of fun, right? Like it's just, I don't know. And if we wanted to, we could do something silly like this times 2. And now I get a flatter line. I think I could do, I don't think 1.5 is going to work. It does. Who knew? Oh, look at that. We can kind of draw all sorts of silly things across the screen like this. I don't recommend using periods for the purposes of drawings. You can, of course, use the letter O and you can get things like that. And again, this is just a demonstration so you're aware of what the while loops work with. While loops are very, very, very powerful, but it is so important you do not put yourself in a situation where you're using, first of all, a lot of these, especially if this is in the timer. And again, I'm not going to do this. I'm not even going to run this. I just want you to be mindful of this. If I were to put this, not timer, I will do a tick here. If I were to build the code like this, every single 25 times a second, this loop would have to now go through 64. Now, I don't know about you, but 25 times 64 equals 1,600 items every single second. Now, if I reboot this sucker real quickly, let me just make sure you're very well aware of this. You have a maximum number of 1 million items per second. So it's very, very important that you're aware the fact that if I put that simple loop in there and I'm running it 25 times a second, you're doing 1,600 things, not counting the fact that I'm drawing and incrementing, which actually increases this number by a factor of about 4. So 6,400 things just like that. Now, if I divide that by my limit, which is 1 million, you can see I'm at almost 1% of my maximum capability there. It is very, very, very easy to suddenly have 30 while loops and 30 repeat loops and 34s, and next thing you know, you've run yourself out of operations per second, or you've melted the battery you're connected to. You can see right now is we're basically sucking down at 25 watts. Again, I've got a pretty darn strong solar panel here, which is doing a lovely job of kind of keeping the process going. Now, if I actually were to run this, oh my God, I forgot to disable that code. Check this out. You can see that it is drastically using more code. And again, I didn't save this, so it's unfortunately actually just for demonstration. Just for demonstration, you can see I have to define number here. Oh boy, let's go ahead and do it. Oh boy, I'm going to do this. This is for science, everybody. And if I come down to my battery here, which is an indication of how much power I'm using, you can see that I'm using a substantially larger quantity of battery. So again, be so mindful with iteration. Enjoy.